costumes that had to be finished by hand. Florrie, the cleaner, mentioned that she'd seen him. "He was asking after you," she said, and a great black cloud descended over Violet as her mind filled with memories of their time together. She'd been 16, naive and stupidly trusting. She dreamed of fame and fortune, going places, seeing the world. She was pretty too, she knew that. He said beautiful. She had a voice. She could sing, everyone said so. He said he'd make her a star. "Really?" she said to Florrie. "He knows where I live." Yes, she thought. If he wanted to find her, he'd know where to look. Still, she doubted he'd dare show his face at the pub. All the same, her fists curled and her stomach churned. She felt sick at the thought of seeing him again, and her brother John wouldn't be too pleased either. She sighed as the memories of the past played through her mind. It wasn't all bad. They'd had good times, at the beginning. He'd go on stage and do his magic tricks, then she'd sing a couple of songs. Those days were long gone. The only singing she did now was at the Hope and Anchor on Saturday nights. Her regular singing spot brought the customers in, making it the best night of the week. Last night was no exception. That's when she saw him again. She'd been singing all the old music hall songs the audience loved in the function room, as usual. A good crowd, too. They'd clapped, cheered, and joined in with the songs that were their favourites. The room filled with chatter, laughter, and singing. Then, towards the end of the evening, she slipped out to get a drink, and thought she saw him making his way through the public bar. She wasn't sure at first. She only caught a glimpse, and it had been years. But the churning in her stomach told her she wasn't mistaken. He was back, and he'd come looking for her. Her stomach churned. She struggled to finish the next song and left the stage, but they all paired bar, pushing past Alice, who was serving behind the bar. Her heart pounded as she rushed upstairs. She sat on the bed for what felt like hours, trying to figure out what it was he wanted. He wasn't stupid enough to think there was anything for him here, surely. If John saw him, she'd not be responsible for his actions. Her hands shook as she unbuttoned her dress, changed into a night shift and put on her dressing gown. The pub would be closed by now. Slowly, she made her way down to the kitchen where John and Alice were having a nightcap before retiring to their beds. "Can I have one of those?" she said, nodding at the bottle of brandy on the table. John lifted the bottle to pour one for her. "What happened to you? You left a bit sudden. Alice thought you weren't feeling well." Violet gulped back the drink. "I thought I saw someone I knew," she said. Before John could inquire further, Alice jumped up. "Oh, there was someone. He left a note for you, Violet." She dashed into the bar and returned with an envelope with Violet's name on it. "Sorry, I almost forgot. It was just before closing." Violet opened the letter and read it. As she did so, the blood drained from her face. Nausea rose up in her throat, and her knees buckled. She would have hit the floor if it hadn't been for Alice, catching her and guiding her to a chair. "Are you all right?" Alice said. "You look like you've had a bit of a shock." John poured her another brandy. "No," she said. "I'm fine." She picked up the glass, swigged back the rest of the warming mellow liquid, and made her way unsteadily upstairs. She read the note, over and over. "Hello, Violet. I see you've landed on your feet. Time for us to get reacquainted and for me to meet my children, the children you've kept from me. You didn't know I knew about them, did you? But I made it my business to know. Bring them to the Palace of Varieties, Shoreditch, tomorrow at opening time. Don't disappoint me, Violet. You know how I hate being disappointed. Your ever-loving Bert." Ever-loving Bert? Well, he'd never been that. On stage he was the magnificent Merlin, master of magic and mystery, who could keep you spellbound with his tricks. Well, he was full of tricks, all right, but not the ones you saw on stage. And he'd tricked her, hadn't he? Tricked her into believing that he loved her, tricked her into an unwanted pregnancy. There was nothing magnificent or magic about that. What a fool she'd been. She'd fallen for his charms and come to regret it. Thanks to her family, those days were gone, and she had no intention or desire to see him ever again. She thought of her children, Rose and William. Children he didn't want, and had told her to get rid of. She'd adored them from the first moment they drew breath, and there was nothing in the world she wouldn't do for them. Her mind filled with memories.